I'm excited to welcome you to my channel. Before I dive into my story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It was a crisp autumn morning, the kind that made you appreciate the stillness of the world before it fully woke up. I was sitting by my favorite spot on the riverbank, the mist rising from the water as the sun's first light began to filter through the trees. My fishing rod was propped up beside me, the line lazily drifting with the current. There was a sense of peace in these moments, a quiet connection to nature that had always drawn me to fishing. It was my sanctuary, my escape, and in many ways, it had become a lifeline. As I waited for a bite, my phone buzzed in my jacket pocket, breaking the tranquil silence. Normally, I wouldn't have bothered checking it, preferring to disconnect from the world when I was out here, but something made me reach for it. A message from one of my fishing buddies popped up on the screen, and as I read it, my heart skipped a beat. Did you hear? They're talking about making fishing a Paralympic sport. For a moment, I just stared at the message, my mind racing to catch up. Fishing, a Paralympic sport? The idea seemed almost too good to be true, and a part of me wondered if it was just a rumor, the kind of thing that gets passed around but never really happens. But the more I thought about it, the more the excitement started to build. Fishing had always been more than just a hobby for me. It was a way of life, something that had carried me through some of my darkest days. After the accident that left me with a disability, I'd struggled to find a sense of normalcy, to connect with the things I loved doing before. But fishing was different. It didn't matter that I couldn't move the way I used to, out on the water, with a rod in my hand, I felt whole again. Every cast, every catch was a reminder that I was still capable, still in control, and still able to enjoy the things that brought me joy. The thought of taking that love for fishing to the world stage, of competing in the Paralympics, was both thrilling and daunting. I knew how much skill and patience it took to fish well, the kind of focus that went beyond just physical strength. But could it really become a competitive sport? Would people see the value in it, the way it tested not just your body, but your mind and spirit? As I sat there, the idea began to take root in my mind. If fishing really did become a Paralympic sport, I wanted to be part of it. The thought of representing my country, of standing alongside athletes from all over the world, doing something I loved, that was a dream I hadn't even known I had until that moment. And yet, here it was, tantalizingly within reach. I felt a rush of determination, a fire that I hadn't felt in a long time. Fishing had given me so much, it had helped me rebuild my confidence, find peace in the midst of chaos, and connect with a part of myself that I thought I'd lost. Now, it felt like it was calling me to something greater, a chance to show the world what this sport was really about. But alongside the excitement, there was a hint of skepticism. Would this really happen? And if it did, would I be good enough to compete at that level? The questions swirled in my mind, but they couldn't dampen the growing sense of possibility. Whether it was just a rumor or not, the seed had been planted, and I knew I couldn't ignore it. As I reeled in my line, the sun now fully up and casting a golden glow over the water, I made a silent promise to myself. If fishing became a Paralympic sport, I would be ready. I would train harder, fish smarter, and do everything I could to turn this dream into reality. Because fishing had already changed my life in so many ways, and maybe, just maybe, it was about to change it again. It was an ordinary Wednesday morning when everything changed. I was sitting at my kitchen table, sipping my usual cup of coffee, and scrolling through the news on my phone. The world was waking up, the day still holding the promise of possibility. I had plans to head out to the lake later, to spend a few quiet hours with my thoughts and my fishing rod, but for now, I was just enjoying the peace of the morning. As I absent-mindedly swiped through the headlines, one in particular caught my eye: fishing officially added as Paralympic event for upcoming games. My heart skipped a beat. I stared at the screen, not quite believing what I was seeing. Could it really be true? The rumor that had been swirling around for months, the one I had tried not to get my hopes up about, had it actually become reality? With trembling fingers, I clicked on the article. As I read the words, my excitement grew with every sentence. The International Paralympic Committee had officially announced that fishing would be included as a new event in the upcoming Paralympic Games. They recognized fishing as a sport that required not just physical skill, but mental focus, strategy, and perseverance, qualities that made it a perfect fit for the Paralympic spirit. I could barely contain my excitement. My mind raced as I imagined what this meant, not just for the sport, but for me. Competing at the Paralympics had always seemed like a distant dream, something for other people, other athletes. But now, with fishing included, that dream was suddenly within reach. I could picture it so clearly, standing on the world stage, representing my country, casting my line with the hopes and dreams of so many others who loved this sport as much as I did. The announcement shifted something deep within me. Fishing had always been my sanctuary, a way to escape the pressures of life and find peace in nature. It was where I found solace after the accident, where I rebuilt my confidence and rediscovered my sense of self. But now, it was more than just a hobby. It was a path to something greater, a chance to prove not just to myself, but to the world, that fishing was a sport of skill, strategy, and heart. I could feel a new sense of purpose taking hold. The thought of competing in the Paralympics was exhilarating, but it was also daunting. I knew that I would need to take my training to a whole new level, to push myself harder than ever before. Fishing had always been a passion, but now it was also a challenge, one that I was eager to rise to. As I sat there, the article still glowing on my phone screen, I felt a surge of determination. This was my chance, and I wasn't going to let it slip by. The idea of turning my love for fishing into a pursuit of Paralympic glory filled me with a mix of excitement and resolve. It was as if a door had been opened, and on the other side was a future I had never dared to dream of. I stood up, feeling a renewed energy coursing through me. The lake was still waiting, but now it was calling to me with a different voice. This wasn't just another day of fishing, it was the beginning of a journey, one that could lead all the way to the Paralympic Games. I grabbed my gear, heart pounding with anticipation, and headed out the door. The world had changed, and so had I. As I walked down the path to the lake, I couldn't help but smile. Fishing had always been about more than just catching fish. It was about the challenge, the connection to nature, and the sense of accomplishment that came with mastering a skill. Now, it was also about representing something bigger than myself, about pushing the boundaries of what was possible. With every step, the excitement grew. The Paralympics were no longer a distant dream, they were a goal, something to strive for, something that could actually happen. And as I reached the water's edge, the morning sun sparkling on the surface, I knew that I was ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. Fishing was no longer just a pastime, it was my path to the Paralympics, and I was ready to follow it, wherever it might lead. The day after the official announcement, I woke up before dawn, feeling a mix of excitement and determination coursing through me. This wasn't just another day at the lake, this was the beginning of something bigger. I had made up my mind the night before, if I wanted to compete in the Paralympics, I needed to treat fishing not just as a passion, but as a sport, one that required dedication, discipline, and relentless effort. I began my new training regime that very morning. It started with a physical warm-up, something I'd never thought much about before heading out to fish. But now, I knew that building my physical strength and endurance was just as important as my technique. I focused on exercises that would improve my grip strength, my core stability, and my overall stamina. Fishing, especially at the competitive level, wasn't just about sitting by the water, it demanded long hours of concentration, the ability to fight fatigue, and the strength to reel in big catches without faltering. After the warm-up, I headed to the lake with a clear plan in mind. Today, it wasn't just about enjoying the tranquility of the water, it was about mastering my craft. I set up multiple rods with different rigs and baits, each one tailored for a specific type of fish. I wanted to be prepared for any scenario, any fish that might take the bait during the trials. I practiced casting over and over again, refining my technique until each cast was smooth, precise, and landed exactly where I intended. As the sun rose higher, the physical challenges began to set in. My arms ached from the repetitive motion, my back stiffened from standing for hours on end, and the heat of the day started to drain my energy. But I pushed through it, reminding myself that this was what it took to compete at the highest level. Every cast, every reeling motion, was a step closer to my goal. But it wasn't just the physical demands that tested me, it was the mental challenges too. Competitive fishing required sharp focus and the ability to think strategically under pressure. I spent hours studying the water, paying attention to the subtle signs that indicated where the fish might be hiding. I practiced reading the weather, knowing how changes in wind, temperature, and light could affect the fish's behavior. I experimented with different baits, learning how to adapt quickly if one method wasn't working. There were moments of frustration, times when the fish weren't biting, or when I missed a catch due to a small mistake in technique. But I didn't let it deter me. Each setback was a learning opportunity, a chance to refine my skills and improve. I started keeping a detailed journal of each training session, noting what worked and what didn't, so I could continuously adjust my strategy. Fishing had always been about patience, but now it was about precision, discipline, and mental resilience. I realized that to succeed in this sport, I needed to be as adaptable as the fish I was trying to catch. I couldn't control everything, the weather, the fish, the conditions, but I could control my response, my preparation, and my mindset. As the weeks went by, my body grew stronger, my technique sharper, and my focus more intense. I no longer approached fishing as a leisurely activity. Every time I cast my line, I saw it as part of my training, a crucial step on the path to the Paralympics. The lake had become my training ground, each ripple and current a part of the course I needed to master. I also began to seek out new challenges, venturing to different lakes and rivers, each with its own unique conditions. I fished in the early morning fog, under the blazing midday sun, and in the chill of evening. I faced rough currents, tangled lines, and unpredictable weather. Each experience taught me something new, something I could add to my growing arsenal of skills. But the most important lesson I learned was that fishing wasn't just about the physical act of catching fish. It was about strategy, endurance, and mental toughness. It was about staying calm under pressure, adapting to the environment, and never losing sight of the goal. The challenges I faced on the water were a mirror of the challenges I'd face in competition and in life. Every day, I grew more confident in my abilities, more certain that I was on the right path. Fishing had always been my passion, but now it was also my purpose. I could feel myself transforming, not just as a fisherman, but as an athlete, ready to take on whatever challenges the Paralympic trials would throw my way. And as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, I knew that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but I was ready. Fishing was no longer just a hobby, it was my sport, my discipline, and my ticket to the Paralympics. And I was determined to see it through to the very end. The day of the Paralympic trials dawned with a crisp, clear sky and a light mist hovering over the surface of the lake. This wasn't just any lake, it was a vast, serene expanse of water surrounded by dense, towering trees, their reflections rippling gently in the early morning light. The air was filled with the earthy scent of pine and the soft sounds of nature waking up, birds chirping in the distance, the rustle of leaves, and the occasional splash of a fish breaking the surface. This was the setting for the most important day of my life. As I stood on the shore, my breath visible in the cool morning air, I felt a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Excitement, yes, but also a deep, gnawing tension. This was it, the day I had been preparing for, the day that would determine if I had what it took to represent my country at the Paralympic Games. The stakes couldn't be higher. I glanced around at the other competitors, each of them focused, determined, and ready. Like me, they had trained for months, if not years, for this moment. We were all here for the same reason, to secure a spot on the national team and to prove that fishing deserved its place in the Paralympic lineup. The judges, a group of seasoned anglers and officials, were already in position, their eyes scanning the lake, ready to assess every cast, every catch. The weight of their gaze added to the pressure, making every move feel crucial. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. This wasn't just about skill, it was about strategy, timing, and the ability to perform under intense pressure. When the starting signal was given, the air was charged with a quiet intensity. I quickly moved to my assigned spot, a carefully chosen area along the lake's edge where the water was deep and the fish were known to be plentiful. The first challenge was to choose the right bait, something that would attract the larger, more elusive fish that the judges were looking for. I opted for a spinnerbait, a choice that had served me well in practice, and with a practiced flick of the wrist, I cast my line into the water. The first few minutes felt like an eternity. The line cut through the water, the spinnerbait creating a small ripple as it sank beneath the surface. I could feel the tension in my shoulders, my grip tight on the rod, every muscle in my body coiled like a spring. The lake, usually so peaceful, now felt like a battleground, every ripple and splash a potential sign of a fish or a missed opportunity. I focused on the water, my mind racing through the strategy one had practiced so many times before. Fishing in the trials wasn't just about waiting for a bite, it was about reading the water, anticipating where the fish might be, and knowing when to adjust your technique. I let the line sink deeper, reeling it in slowly, trying to mimic the movement of prey that would entice a big catch. My heart pounded with every turn of the reel. And then, suddenly, there it was, a strong, sharp tug on the line. My heart leaped into my throat as the rod bent under the weight of the fish. This was it, the first catch. The thrill of that moment was indescribable, a rush of adrenaline mixed with the sheer determination to succeed. I began to reel in, my focus narrowing to the line and the fish at the other end. The world around me faded away. There was only the tension of the line, the resistance of the fish, and the knowledge that this catch could be the one that made all the difference. The fish fought hard, pulling with surprising strength, testing every ounce of skill and endurance I had built up over months of training. I adjusted my grip, keeping the rod steady, feeling the fish dart and twist beneath the surface. The pressure was immense. I knew that the judges were watching every move, every moment of this battle between angler and fish. I couldn't afford a mistake. The fish swam deeper, and I let the line out slightly before reeling it back in, a delicate balance of patience and force. The minutes ticked by, each one stretching longer than the last. My arms ached from the strain, but I didn't let go, my mind locked in a battle of wills with the fish. I could feel the sweat beating on my forehead, my breath coming in short, controlled bursts. The fish was strong, but I was stronger. I had trained for this, prepared for this exact moment. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only a few intense minutes, I saw the flash of silver just beneath the surface, a large, gleaming fish struggling against the line. I tightened my grip, giving one last, strong pull, and the fish broke through the surface, its scales catching the light as it thrashed in the air. The rush of triumph was overwhelming. I had done it. I had landed the first catch of the trials, and it was a beauty. I quickly measured the fish, making note of its size before releasing it back into the water, the judges' nods of approval sending a surge of relief through me. But there was no time to rest on my laurels. The competition was far from over, and I knew that each catch from here on out would be even more critical. The first fish had broken the ice, but now I needed to maintain that momentum, to keep pushing forward with the same intensity and focus. The pressure didn't let up. Every cast, every pull on the line, every choice of bait was a decision that could make or break my chances. The lake, once a place of calm, now felt alive with tension, the air thick with the unspoken competition between us all. But as the trials continued, I felt my nerves steadying, my confidence growing with each successful cast. I was in the zone, fully immersed in the rhythm of the sport, every movement honed by the countless hours I had spent preparing for this moment. The day wore on, the sun climbing higher in the sky, casting a golden glow over the lake. The challenges continued, tangles in the line, moments of doubt, the constant awareness of the judges' eyes on me. But through it all, I kept my focus, drawing on the strength and determination that had brought me this far. By the time the final signal was given, signaling the end of the trials, I was exhausted, every muscle in my body aching from the effort. But I was also exhilarated, filled with a deep sense of accomplishment. I had given it everything I had, faced the challenges head-on, and proved to myself that I was capable of competing at this level. As I reeled in my line one last time, the lake returning to its peaceful state, I knew that whatever the outcome, I had pushed myself to my limits, and beyond. The trials had been a test not just of skill, but of resilience, strategy, and mental toughness. And as I looked out over the water, the sun setting in a blaze of color, I felt a profound sense of pride. I had come to compete, and I had done just that, with everything I had. The moment the fish hit the line, it was like a jolt of electricity surged through my body. The rod bent sharply, the line cutting through the water with a tense, urgent pull. My heart pounded as I instinctively tightened my grip, every muscle in my arms tensing in response. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for, the first real test of everything I trained for. The exhilaration was immediate, a rush of adrenaline that pushed away any lingering doubts. The fish was strong, stronger than I had expected, and it fought hard. I could feel it pulling against the line, trying to break free, and I knew that this wasn't going to be easy. But I was ready. All those early mornings, all the hours spent refining my technique, had prepared me for this exact moment. I took a deep breath, steadying my nerves, and began to reel in with careful, measured movements. It wasn't just about strength, it was about control, about knowing when to give a little and when to pull back. The rod vibrated in my hands, every twitch of the line transmitting the fish's desperate attempts to escape. I could feel the weight of it, the way it tried to dive deeper, to shake the hook free. But I didn't let it. I kept the tension just right, using the strength in my core and arms to maintain the perfect balance. My mind was laser-focused on the task, blocking out everything else, the other competitors, the judges, even the quiet intensity of the lake around me. There was only me, the rod, and the fish. With every turn of the reel, I could feel the fish losing ground, its resistance beginning to wane. But it wasn't over yet. The fish made a sudden, desperate lunge to the side, pulling with renewed force. My muscles burned with the effort, my hands gripping the rod so tightly my knuckles turned white. But I didn't let go. I adjusted my stance, leaning into the pull, using my entire body to counter the fish's movement. The physical effort was immense, but so was the mental challenge. I had to stay calm, to keep my focus even as the adrenaline coursed through me. This was the moment that would set the tone for the rest of the trials, and I couldn't afford to make a mistake. I remembered my training, the countless hours spent practicing for exactly this, reeling in fish after fish, building the endurance and skill I needed to succeed. It was all coming together now, every lesson learned, every obstacle overcome, culminating in this struggle between angler and fish. And then, after what felt like an eternity, I saw it, a flash of silver just below the surface. The fish was close, so close I could almost feel its strength starting to ebb. I reeled in with a final, determined pull, bringing the fish up out of the water and into the air. It was a large one, its scales glistening in the sunlight, water droplets sparkling as it thrashed at the end of the line. My breath caught in my throat as I lifted it higher, the weight of the fish in my hands a tangible reward for all the effort I had put in. The exhilaration of that moment was indescribable. I had done it. I had landed the first fish of the trials, and it was a beauty. The doubts that had lingered at the back of my mind, the fear that maybe I wasn't ready, that maybe I wasn't good enough, they all vanished in that instant. This catch wasn't just a fish, it was proof that I belonged here, that I had what it took to compete at this level. I quickly unhooked the fish, careful to keep it intact, and held it up for the judges to see. The nods of approval sent a surge of pride through me, a validation of everything I had worked for. But beyond the judges, beyond the competition, this moment was personal. It was a turning point, a realization that I had crossed a threshold. I was no longer just someone who loved to fish, I was a competitor, someone who could rise to the occasion when it mattered most. As I released the fish back into the water, watching it swim away into the depths, I felt a new sense of confidence take root inside me. The first catch was always the hardest, the one that set the tone for everything that followed. And now that I had it, I knew I could do it again. The pressure, the nerves, they were still there, but now they were tempered by the knowledge that I had already succeeded once. I could do it again. The mental and physical effort it had taken to land that fish was immense, but it was also empowering. I had pushed myself to my limits, and I had come out on top. As I prepared to cast my line again, I felt a deep, unwavering belief in my ability to compete at the highest level. The trials were far from over, but I was ready for whatever came next. Fishing had always been my passion, but now it was my purpose. Every cast, every catch was a step closer to the Paralympic stage, and I was more determined than ever to get there. The first fish had been the turning point, the moment that solidified my belief in myself and my ability to compete. And as I stood there, the line ready in my hands, I knew that this was just the beginning. I was in the game now, and I wasn't going to stop until I reached the finish line. The sun had dipped low in the sky by the time the trials were over, casting a warm, golden hue over the lake. The water, now calm and reflective, seemed to mirror the stillness that had settled over the competitors as we gathered near the judges' table. The excitement and adrenaline of the day had given way to a different kind of tension, a quiet, heavy anticipation that hung in the air as we waited for the final results to be announced. I stood among my fellow anglers, my hands clenched into fists at my sides, trying to keep my nerves in check. The hours of competition had taken their toll, my body was tired, my muscles aching from the intense effort, but the real battle was now on my mind. I replayed the day's events over and over, questioning every decision, every cast. Had I done enough? Had my catches been strong enough to secure a spot on the team? The doubts crept in, unbidden, but I forced myself to push them away. I had given it everything I had, now all I could do was wait. The head judge stepped forward, holding a clipboard with the results, and the crowd fell silent. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing in my ears as I strained to catch every word. The judge's voice was calm, methodical, as he began to call out the names of those who had made the team. With each name announced, the tension grew thicker, the seconds stretching into what felt like hours. I could feel the hope building inside me, mixed with an almost unbearable nervousness. I knew the competition had been fierce, every one of us had fought hard, every one of us deserved to be here. But there were only so many spots, and as the names continued to be read, I couldn't help but wonder if mine would be among them. Then, finally, it happened. My name was called. For a split second, I didn't believe it. The words seemed to hang in the air, almost surreal, as if my mind couldn't quite process what I had just heard. But then, the realization hit me like a wave, crashing over me with a force that took my breath away. My name. I had made the team. I was going to the Paralympics. A surge of emotion flooded through me, relief, joy, disbelief, all at once. My legs felt weak, and for a moment, I just stood there, trying to steady myself as the truth of what had just happened sank in. I had done it. I had achieved the goal I had set for myself all those months ago, when the idea of fishing as a Paralympic sport had first been a distant dream. And now, that dream was real. I had earned my place on the team, and the sense of accomplishment was overwhelming. But it wasn't just personal pride that filled my heart in that moment. As I looked around at the faces of my fellow competitors, the judges, and the small crowd of supporters who had gathered to watch, I realized how much this moment meant to so many people. My success wasn't just my own, it was a testament to the support, encouragement, and teamwork that had brought me to this point. I thought of the countless hours spent training with my fishing club, the advice and guidance from seasoned anglers who had believed in my potential, and the unwavering support of my friends and family, who had stood by me every step of the way. This victory was theirs as much as it was mine. I felt a deep gratitude for everyone who had played a part in this journey, from the people who had first introduced me to fishing to those who had pushed me to pursue this dream with everything I had. Their belief in me had fueled my determination, and now, standing here with my name on the list, I knew that I couldn't have done it alone. As the other names were announced and the team was finalized, I allowed myself to fully embrace the joy of the moment. I had worked so hard for this, sacrificed so much, and now it was all worth it. The doubts and fears that had plagued me before seemed to melt away, replaced by a quiet confidence that I had earned my place among the best. I was ready to represent my country, to compete on the world stage, and to show the world what fishing as a Paralympic sport was all about. When the ceremony was over and the crowd began to disperse, I found myself standing by the lake, watching the last rays of sunlight dance on the water's surface. The day had been long, exhausting, and challenging in every way, but it had also been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. I had proven to myself that I could rise to the occasion, that I could compete at the highest level and succeed. And in doing so, I had taken a step towards something even greater, the chance to fulfill a dream that had once seemed impossible. As I gazed out at the tranquil water, a sense of calm settled over me. This was just the beginning. The real journey was still ahead, and it would be filled with new challenges, new opportunities, and new moments of triumph. But for now, I allowed myself to savor this victory, to feel the joy and pride of knowing that I had earned my place on the Paralympic team. It was a moment I would carry with me always, a reminder of what was possible when you dared to dream, to work hard, and to never give up. The day I arrived at the Paralympic Village was one I dreamed about for months, but nothing could have prepared me for the overwhelming reality of it. As the bus rolled to a stop, I stepped off onto the path that led to the village, my heart pounding with a mix of pride, excitement, and anticipation. The air buzzed with energy, filled with the chatter of athletes from around the world, all gathered here to compete at the highest level. I could feel the collective sense of purpose, the shared determination that linked us all together, regardless of the sports we were there to represent. The village itself was a sprawling, vibrant hub of activity. Banners in every color and flag fluttered in the breeze, representing nations from every corner of the globe. The buildings were modern, sleek, and buzzing with life, dormitories where athletes rested and socialized, training facilities where last-minute preparations were underway, and communal areas where the camaraderie between competitors blossomed. Everywhere I looked, I saw athletes in their national gear, some chatting animatedly in groups, others quietly focused, mentally preparing for the days ahead. As I walked through the village, my gear slung over my shoulder, I couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. I was here, among the best in the world, representing my country. This wasn't just about fishing anymore, it was about being part of something much larger, a global celebration of perseverance, skill, and the human spirit. Each step I took felt like a step closer to the realization of a dream, the culmination of all the hard work, sacrifice, and determination that had brought me to this point. The atmosphere in the village was electric, a palpable mix of nerves, excitement, and anticipation. Athletes were focused, yet there was also a sense of camaraderie, a mutual respect that transcended competition. As I passed by groups of athletes, I saw smiles, handshakes, and words of encouragement exchanged in multiple languages. The diversity was incredible, different cultures, different backgrounds, all united by a common goal, to give our best performances and push the limits of what we were capable of. I felt a deep sense of connection to everyone around me, knowing that we were all here because we had worked tirelessly to earn our spots. In the days leading up to the competition, the village became my home, a place where I could focus on my final preparations while soaking in the experience of being among the world's elite athletes. Each morning, I joined my fellow competitors at the competition lake for training sessions. The lake was stunning, a pristine body of water surrounded by towering trees, with the early morning mist hanging low over the surface. It was calm and serene, the perfect setting for intense, focused practice. We trained hard, each session a chance to refine our strategies and adapt to the conditions of the lake. I spent hours on the water, practicing my casts, studying the subtle movements of the fish, and fine-tuning my approach. This wasn't just about physical skill, it was about mental preparation, too. I knew that once the competition began, every decision would count, every movement would be scrutinized, and I needed to be ready. The pressure was immense, but it was balanced by the knowledge that I had trained for this, that I had earned my place here, and that I was capable of performing at my best. The camaraderie among the athletes grew stronger with each passing day. We were all in this together, facing the same pressures, the same challenges, and that created a bond between us. In the evenings, after long days of training, we gathered in the communal areas of the village, sharing stories, experiences, and tips. There was a deep sense of mutual respect and understanding. We knew what it had taken to get here, and we supported each other, even as we prepared to compete against one another. It was a unique environment, one where the line between competitor and comrade blurred, and I found myself forming connections with people from all over the world. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of training, I found myself sitting by the lake, watching the sun set over the water. The sky was a brilliant mix of oranges and pinks, the reflection shimmering on the surface of the lake. As I sat there, I reflected on everything that had led me to this point, the challenges I had faced, the obstacles I had overcome, and the people who had supported me along the way. I felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the opportunity to compete, but for the journey itself. The final days before the competition were a mix of intense preparation and quiet reflection. I spent hours visualizing the event, going over every possible scenario in my mind, preparing myself mentally for the challenges ahead. But I also took time to appreciate the experience, to soak in the atmosphere of the village, and to connect with the athletes around me. We were all here for the same reason, and that created a sense of unity, a shared purpose that transcended individual goals. As the night before the competition approached, I felt a sense of calm settle over me. I was ready. The village, the lake, the people I had met, they had all become part of my journey, part of the experience that had brought me to this point. I knew that no matter what happened in the competition, I had already achieved something incredible. I had made it to the Paralympics, I had represented my country, and I had pushed myself to be the best I could be. That night, as I lay in bed, the sounds of the village quieting around me, I felt a deep sense of peace. Tomorrow, the competition would begin, and I would give it everything I had. But for now, I allowed myself to simply be in the moment, to appreciate the journey and the incredible experience of being part of the Paralympic Games. I knew that whatever the outcome, this was a moment I would carry with me for the rest of my life, a testament to the power of perseverance, passion, and the human spirit. The day of the Paralympic fishing event arrived with a cool, crisp dawn that cast a soft light over the competition lake. The atmosphere was charged with a quiet intensity, the kind that comes when months, years, even of preparation and hard work all boil down to a single day. As I stood by the water's edge, my gear meticulously arranged beside me, I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. This was it, the culmination of everything I had worked for, the chance to prove myself on the world stage. The lake, which had been a place of calm and reflection during our training days, now felt different. The water was still, almost unnervingly so, as if it too was holding its breath in anticipation of what was to come. The shoreline was lined with spectators and officials, their eyes fixed on the competitors, adding to the sense of pressure that hung in the air. Flags from every competing nation fluttered in the breeze, a reminder of the global stage we were on. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. The other competitors, all of them seasoned anglers and athletes, were just as focused as I was, their faces a mixture of concentration and determination. We had trained together, shared moments of camaraderie in the village, but now we were rivals, each of us fighting for the same goal. I knew that today would test me in ways I had never been tested before, both physically and mentally. As the starting signal echoed across the lake, a collective ripple of movement swept through the competitors. I quickly made my first cast, the line arcing gracefully through the air before landing softly on the water's surface. The initial moments of the event were crucial, finding the right spot, the right depth, the right technique to entice the fish. I could feel the tension in the line as it settled, the anticipation of that first bite electrifying every nerve in my body. The pressure was immense. Every second counted, and every decision had to be made with precision. I scanned the water, my eyes darting between the surface ripples and the slight movement of my line. The lake's conditions were constantly changing, the light shifting as the sun climbed higher, the breeze stirring the water just enough to add an extra layer of challenge. But I had trained for this. I knew how to read the water, how to adjust my strategy on the fly, and I was determined to stay focused. Minutes passed, each one feeling longer than the last, and then, there it was. A tug on the line, subtle at first, but unmistakable. My heart leapt, and I instinctively tightened my grip on the rod, my body moving into action. The fish had taken the bait, and now the real battle began. I started to reel in, my movements measured and controlled, every muscle in my arms and back engaged as I worked to bring the fish closer. The fish was strong, pulling hard against the line, and I could feel the strain in my muscles as I fought to maintain control. It darted to the side, trying to shake free, but I adjusted my stance, keeping the tension just right. My mind was a flurry of calculations, judging the fish's size, estimating the depth, deciding when to give it slack and when to reel it in. The spectators were watching, the judges were watching, but all that mattered in that moment was the fish and the line between us. The sun was higher now, the heat beginning to rise, and I could feel the sweat on my brow as I continued the fight. The fish made another strong pull, testing my endurance, but I didn't let up. I could feel every movement, every shift in its resistance, and I knew I was getting closer. My arms burned with the effort, my breathing was steady but heavy, and the world outside my immediate focus seemed to blur and fade away. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I saw the flash of silver beneath the surface. The fish was close, and I knew it was now or never. With one final, determined pull, I brought it up out of the water, its scales gleaming in the sunlight as it thrashed at the end of the line. My heart soared. I had landed my first catch of the event, a good-sized fish, one that would earn me valuable points. I quickly measured and recorded the catch, my hands moving with practiced speed, before releasing the fish back into the lake. But there was no time to celebrate. The clock was ticking, and I needed to keep going. I cast my line again, my focus renewed, the adrenaline from the first catch fueling my determination. This was only the beginning, and I knew I had to keep up the pace if I wanted to stay competitive. The hours wore on, each one a test of my endurance and mental toughness. The conditions on the lake continued to change, the wind picked up, creating small waves that made it harder to see the subtle movements of the line. The sun climbed higher, the heat becoming more intense, sapping energy and focus. But I pushed through, drawing on every ounce of strength and concentration I had. Each catch was a victory, each moment a battle won. I could feel the exhaustion setting in, my muscles aching from the repeated strain of reeling in fish after fish. But I didn't let it slow me down. I knew that every second counted, that I couldn't afford to lose focus for even a moment. The other competitors were just as determined, just as skilled, and I had to keep pushing if I wanted to come out on top. The pressure of the competition was relentless, but so was my determination. I had come too far, worked too hard, to let anything stand in my way now. Every time I cast my line, I reminded myself of why I was here, of the journey that had brought me to this point, of the people who had supported me, and of the dream I was fighting to achieve. This was my moment, and I was going to give it everything I had. As the event drew to a close, the final signal echoing across the lake, I felt a wave of exhaustion mixed with exhilaration. I had given it my all, left everything I had on the water. The results were out of my hands now, but I knew that I had done everything I could to succeed. The competition had been fierce, the challenges immense, but I had faced them head-on and held my own against the best in the world. As I reeled in my line one last time, the lake returning to its peaceful state, I allowed myself a moment of quiet reflection. This event had been the culmination of all my hard work, a test of everything I had learned and trained for. And no matter the outcome, I knew that I had proven something important, to myself, and to everyone watching. I was a competitor, a Paralympian, and I had earned my place here through determination, skill, and an unwavering belief in myself. The sun was beginning to set as I made my way back to shore, the light softening as it reflected off the water. The spectators were still there, the judges preparing to announce the results, but for now, I felt a deep sense of peace. I had faced the pressure, the challenges, and the competition, and I had given it everything I had. And as I stood there, the weight of the moment settling over me, I knew that this was just the beginning of something even greater. The final moments of the competition were almost unbearably tense. The sun was dipping low in the sky, casting long shadows across the lake, and the once calm water now seemed to ripple with the collective anticipation of everyone present. The air was thick with expectation as the last of the fishing lines were reeled in, the competition coming to a close. I stood on the shore, my hands trembling slightly from a combination of exhaustion and adrenaline, my heart pounding in my chest. I had given it everything I had, but now it was out of my hands. The judges were huddled together, their heads bent over their clipboards as they tallied the final scores. The crowd, which had grown throughout the day, was hushed, every eye fixed on the small group of officials who held the results. The other competitors stood nearby, each of us trying to mask our nerves, but the tension was palpable. We all knew what was at stake. As I waited, my mind raced back over the day's events. I replayed every cast, every catch, every decision I had made, searching for reassurance that I had done enough. I thought about the fish I had reeled in, the thrill of each victory, and the moments of doubt that had crept in during the long hours of competition. I had fought hard, pushed myself to my limits, but now, as the final results were about to be announced, I couldn't help but feel a gnawing uncertainty. Had I done enough to secure a place on the podium? Or would I fall just short, despite my best efforts? The seconds seemed to stretch into eternity as the head judge finally stepped forward, a microphone in hand. My breath caught in my throat as I braced myself for the announcement. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me, every emotion heightened by the intensity of the day. I glanced at the other competitors, their faces a mirror of my own, hope, anxiety, and the quiet determination that had carried us all to this point. The judge began to speak, his voice clear but measured, as he first acknowledged the incredible skill and sportsmanship displayed by all the competitors. His words were a blur in my ears. I could barely concentrate on what he was saying, my focus entirely on the numbers that would soon be revealed. I felt my pulse quicken, my hands clenching into fists at my sides as he slowly announced the third-place finisher. My name wasn't called. A mix of relief and anxiety surged through me. If not third, then maybe second. Maybe first. But the uncertainty was excruciating, the outcome still hanging in the balance. I could feel the eyes of the crowd, the weight of their expectation pressing down as the judge moved on to the announcement of second place. Again, my name wasn't called. The realization hit me like a wave. It was either all or nothing now. The difference between first and last, between standing on the highest podium or leaving empty-handed, rested on the final announcement. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. The tension was unbearable, a knot of hope and fear twisting tighter with every passing second. The judge paused, the silence stretching out as he prepared to announce the winner. I held my breath, every muscle in my body taut with anticipation. And then, at last, he spoke the words I had been waiting for. He said my name. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The world seemed to tilt, the sounds of the crowd roaring in my ears as the reality of what had just happened washed over me. I had won. I had done it. I had won gold. The weight of the moment was overwhelming, a flood of emotions crashing over me all at once, relief, joy, disbelief, and an indescribable sense of pride. I had pushed myself to the very edge, and it had paid off. The crowd erupted into applause, and I felt hands clapping me on the back, congratulations coming from every direction, but it all felt like a dream, distant and surreal. My vision blurred with tears as I made my way to the podium, every step feeling like I was floating. When I finally stood at the top, the gold medal placed around my neck, it was as if time had stopped. The weight of the medal was nothing compared to the weight of what it represented, the culmination of all my hard work, all the sacrifices, the countless hours of training, and the relentless pursuit of a dream that had once seemed impossible. As the anthem played and the flag rose, I looked out over the lake, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of gold and pink. The beauty of the moment was almost too much to bear. I felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not just for myself, but for everyone who had supported me, everyone who had believed in me. This victory wasn't just mine, it belonged to all of us. But even as I stood there, basking in the glory of the moment, I knew that the medal was just a symbol. What truly mattered was the journey that had brought me here, the lessons I had learned along the way. Competing at the Paralympics had been about more than winning, it had been about testing my limits, pushing through adversity, and discovering what I was truly capable of. Whether I had won or not, I knew that this experience had changed me forever. The emotions that filled me were complex, pride, yes, but also humility. I had seen what the human spirit was capable of, not just in myself, but in the competitors around me. We had all come here with our own stories, our own struggles, and we had all fought with everything we had. Standing on that podium, I felt connected to something much larger than myself, a community of athletes who had overcome incredible odds to be there, who had proven that disability was not a barrier to greatness. As the ceremony ended and I stepped down from the podium, the metal cool against my chest, I felt a deep sense of peace. I had achieved my dream, but more importantly, I had proven to myself that I could rise to any challenge, that I could compete with the best in the world and come out on top. The Paralympics had been the ultimate test, and I had passed. But this was not the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would continue to push myself, to inspire others, and to honor the incredible journey that had brought me here. In that moment, as the sun set over the lake and the crowd began to disperse, I knew that I would carry this experience with me for the rest of my life. The victory was sweet, but it was the journey, the perseverance, and the unyielding belief in myself that truly defined what it meant to be a Paralympian. As I sat quietly by the lake, the cool evening air gently brushing against my skin, I found myself reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought me here. The water was calm now, the excitement of the day fading into a peaceful stillness that mirrored the sense of tranquility I felt within. The Paralympic Games were behind me, but the impact of the experience was something I would carry with me forever. It was hard to believe that it all started with a simple rumor, a whisper of possibility that fishing might become a Paralympic sport. At the time, the idea had seemed almost too good to be true, a far-off dream that I didn't dare hope would become reality. But something inside me had sparked to life at the thought, a flicker of ambition that had slowly grown into a burning desire to be part of something greater. And now, as I look back on everything that had happened since that moment, I realized just how much that decision had changed my life. Fishing had always been a passion, a way for me to connect with nature and find peace in the quiet moments by the water. But this journey had transformed it into something much more, a sport that demanded the best of me, that challenged me to push beyond my limits and discover new depths of strength and resilience. I had learned that fishing wasn't just about the catch, it was about the patience, the strategy, the mental toughness required to succeed. It was about finding the balance between calm and focus, between letting go and holding on. The process of training for the Paralympics had taught me so much more than just how to perfect my cast or reel in a big catch. It had taught me the value of perseverance, the importance of setting goals and pursuing them with unwavering determination. There had been days when the challenges seemed insurmountable, when doubts crept in and the road ahead felt too long and too difficult. But I had kept going, driven by the belief that I could achieve something extraordinary if I just didn't give up. And that belief had carried me all the way to the Paralympic podium. Competing at the Paralympics had been the ultimate test, not just of my physical skills, but of my mental and emotional fortitude. The pressure, the competition, the intense focus required, it had all pushed me to my limits, and in doing so, it had revealed a strength within me that I hadn't fully realized was there. I had faced my fears, confronted my doubts, and emerged on the other side with a deeper understanding of what I was capable of. The experience had broadened my perspective on sports, showing me that success wasn't just about winning, it was about the journey, the growth, and the resilience you developed along the way. But perhaps the most profound lesson I had learned was the importance of following one's passions. The love I had for fishing was what had driven me to pursue this dream, and that love had only deepened through the experience. Fishing had given me so much, a sense of purpose, a connection to nature, and a way to express my determination and creativity. And now, it had also given me the opportunity to represent my country, to compete on the world stage, and to be part of a movement that celebrated the incredible potential of athletes with disabilities. As I sat there, watching the last light of day fade from the sky, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. I had achieved something truly special, something that went beyond personal success. Being part of the Paralympic Games had allowed me to contribute to a broader movement, one that challenged perceptions and showcased the strength, skill, and determination of athletes from all walks of life. I had been part of something that was bigger than myself, and that was a source of immense pride. The journey from that first rumor to the Paralympic podium had changed me in ways I hadn't expected. It had taught me to embrace challenges, to trust in my abilities, and to appreciate the beauty of the journey, not just the destination. It had deepened my love for fishing, reminding me that it was more than just a hobby, it was a way of life, a passion that had the power to transform and uplift. As I prepared to leave the lake and head back to the village, I knew that this was not the end of my journey. The Paralympics had been an incredible chapter in my life, but there was so much more to come. I would continue to fish, to train, and to compete, driven by the same passion that had brought me here. And I would carry with me the knowledge that I had achieved something truly special, something that would always be a part of who I was. With a final glance at the lake, now bathed in the soft glow of twilight, I stood up and began to walk back to the village. The path ahead was still uncertain, but I felt ready for whatever lay ahead. I had proven to myself that with perseverance, passion, and belief, anything was possible. And that was a lesson that would guide me for the rest of my life, both on the water and beyond. This is where the story ends. Share your opinion in the comments. Did you like the story?